I just want to start off and really say, actually, I commend you guys, the audience, for being here, because I think we're all super busy people, and so the fact that you're spending the time to come here, to open yourself up to new insights, new ideas, spending money too, let's not forget that. So I really admire you, so you should be proud of yourselves for that. The subject of my talk is go big or go home. And what I'd really like to call out there is there's that or right in the middle, right? When you see an or, there's a choice. And so I think the question that's really most interesting to me behind this phrase is, what's worth doing? That's the choice, I think. So what's worth us spending our time, our energy, spending our lives on? I think that kind of sums up the subjects that we're all talking about today. And I just wanted to put up this quote from Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement address. If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? The great thing about this quote, I think, is that it just distills everything down, right? It makes it super obvious, super simple to understand. That question I just posed at the beginning, the only thing that's worth spending your day on is your crazy ambition, your idealistic notion for the way the world should work, and nobody else understands besides you. Clearly, that's the only thing that's worth spending your day on. But how do you get there? How do you do that? How do you define for yourself with a little more clarity what is that big thing for you? So I'd like to share with you today some of my experiences for what I think I've learned about going big. The things I'm going to be talking about is, I think the critical first step is to experience the impossible. And I'm not talking about just pushing straight ahead into that next step on your ambition. I'm talking about stepping sideways and really pushing yourself out of your box and out of your comfort zone. I'll go over these things kind of quickly and then I'll come back to them. Pushing beyond that idea, that thing you've experienced that's really been inspirational to you, I'll almost guarantee you that what you saw, what you experienced of that thing was not that author, that creator, that entrepreneur's first version of that idea. They pushed it beyond what was normal, what was first conceived, into some territory beyond that. Be true. I think maybe the most critical part of this whole thing is the biggest ideas are the ones that are the truest, I think, to who you are, what you're all about. Critical. And then last is this idea, what I call the go-home test. Anything creative involves sacrifices. I really believe that. And I don't think we should brush that aside. I think people in conversations about creative enterprises tend to brush that aside. I think it's really important to actually think about what you're sacrificing to do this thing, because I think by thinking about it, that go-home filter test, the only things that are going to bubble up are the things that are worthwhile for you. So going back to talking about experiencing the impossible, I want to tell you my big experience of this, but the thing is, I have to go on after all these amazing people, and I wanted to tell you a story about myself in high school, and I was not one of these super talented high school kids, right? I was watching that from backstage. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And no, I'm not playing any music for you today. That's another thing, it just kills me. Anyway, I feel like doing a dance. So experiencing the impossible, so in high school, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I was a hardworking student. I was basically a big nerd. If people don't get anything else out of my talk, it's like, your life will go on if you're a big nerd in high school. And I did that, and I did volleyball, and that was my little box. That was my comfort zone. And my older sister, my senior year, gave me just a great piece of advice. She said, you're done with your SATs, your college apps, all that kind of stuff. You should do that thing that you've always wanted to do, but that you've never gotten around to, or even better yet, that you've been afraid to do. And I was thought about, like, what is that? What is that thing? And so I'm pretty sure what she didn't mean, which was one of my thoughts, of like, I'm going to do even better at academic decathlon this year. So that's not it, because again, that's taking forward steps, right? You're trying to take it. And then, I don't think she meant like, oh, I want to get on that better club team at, in Fountain Valley instead of in Irvine or whatever. But I think that, what I took it to be, I think what she means is don't just take that step forward, take that step sideways. That's when you're really coming out of your comfort zone, right? So I'm walking, I see this one of those flyers in high school, and it's auditions for the High School Musical that year, my senior year. And it was The King and I. And I thought, that's the thing. I'm going to go try out for the musical. So I go into this auditorium, and they have a form you got to fill out, and I didn't check off the box for the servant role or the son or the one for like, I'm going to help build the sets. I checked the last box, and I walk out on the stage, and I said, hello, I'm Joseph Hei, and I'm auditioning for the role of the king. And you got to understand, again, right, back to all these super talented kids, like, I had no background. I was not one of these drama guys. I'd never done this before. And lo and behold, they gave me the role. I know, right? It's good that you laughed. Because it was pretty ludicrous. I think it helped that I was the only Asian guy who tried out for the role. Yeah, you didn't think anybody could be more stick and bones, but that's me right there. But so how far did this push me out of my comfort zone? First of all, I had to quit the varsity volleyball team, which is a really big deal when that's all you've been doing. Little things though, I had to put on makeup regularly for the first time in my life. I had to completely shave my hair off. I had to get emergency dance lessons because I really, really needed them. And the whole deal, and this wasn't some small production, right? They put it on the UCI Barclay Theater. They brought in professional musicians, sets from a Broadway revival. So this was just unbelievable to me. But I think that it's such an important story for me to tell because for the rest of my life, I've been able to basically anything that just seems ludicrously impossible to me, like go raise money for my company, walk into a room full of VCs to pitch them. I've never done this before. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But I can always think to myself, I'll just go out on that stage, I'll audition, and let's see what happens. So I think that, again, the idea here in terms of breaking out of your comfort zone is you gotta step sideways in order to step forward. So that's my story I want to share with you about experiencing the impossible. So moving to pushing beyond, I want to tell you about a classmate of mine when I was an undergrad at Stanford doing product design, Ross Evans. You see him here, and he's really been one of my original inspiration points for needing to push above and beyond in your creative endeavors. So you can't see it super well here, but he designed in school this long wheelbase bike. Basically, it's kind of like addition onto the back of a bike, and it makes it a lot more stable. You can carry more stuff on it. And that wasn't pushing beyond normal, I don't think. There were a lot of bike projects at Stanford. But then he went off to, for instance, Senegal. And he just had this passion for using his bike as a way to make people's lives better, basically. farmers could take more goods to market and earn more money, and that was not normal for a student, right? And then he just kept pushing. He formed this nonprofit, World Bike. You can look up Ross's TED and TEDx talks. And he's so passionate about the bike being this tool, again, to make people's lives better. He pushed, kept pushing. Formed this company called Extra Cycle. And it's so awesome because every morning when I drop my daughter off at school, I see a bunch of these roll up because they're just such great family bikes and people are dropping off their kids. And not only do I feel proud that I know the guy who started the company, I know where it came from. And it was not that first version of that student bike project, right? Pushed it beyond. And the thought I want to leave you with here is that achievement is not a destination. You just got to keep pushing. So I think that was very inspirational for me. So going on to the idea of being true. Again, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So you know what I studied, but products, there are a lot of different kinds of products. I'm a physical product guy, right? Like mechanisms and machining metal, or like that perfect cut line on the car and the fender. That's who I am. So I'm also a guy who's always wanted to start my own company. So when I finally decided to give that dream a shot, my business partner Brian and I were casting about for ideas, and it really all catalyzed for me. He had a son at the time. I had 8 nephews and nieces. And my sister came in to visit me all the way from out in Hong Kong. She had all her stuff, schlepping it. And I grab her car seat and I go to install it for my little nephew, install it in my car. And it hit me as I'm struggling through this terrible experience that baby products at the time mostly just kind of sucked. I mean, there was just no... sorry, but there was no way to sugarcoat it. They were not easy to use. They didn't look very good at all. They didn't seem particularly safe to me. So I thought, this is it, man. This is what I'm going to spend my life working on, because I had finally found this problem where the essential solution to it has to be physical. And again, let's go back. That's what I do, right? Physical product design. All the bits and bytes and code in the world is not going to help you move your baby from point A to point B, right? So that's why this was the perfect thing for Brian and I to work on. And I just felt so inspired when I happened upon this, this thing that I could work on. And now I get to go to work every day and we get to, build stuff and tinker on things. And I just think it's the biggest ideas are the ones where, it's pretty simple, actually, I think. You never end up waking up in the morning and sort of thinking to yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing here? If you're doing that thing, you're doing it because it's what you do, right? It's that simple for me. So moving on, the idea of the go home test. So go big or go home. I don't try to pretend like, some super creative phrase I made up. We all hear it. We don't think a second thought about it. We all get the reaching for the stars part of that phrase, right? But half of that phrase is go home. And nobody talks about that very much. And that's the alternative, after all. And I like to say it's actually a pretty good alternative, right? I'd like to go home way more and earlier and see my kids and see my family and stuff. And so I think it's really important to think about it. Like anything you do, you're giving up stuff, right? So is what you're doing worth it? That's the question. Is it worth it? I started Orbit Baby. My wife started along with me and our friends. And we had our family. This is Chloe and Zoe, my girls. We had our family while we were doing this crazy orbit thing. And starting a new family and starting a new company at the same time was not easy. I think many of you maybe have had a similar experience. Let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, there's times when it's just hard and it sucks. And it really hit me the other day because I took Chloe to the park and her friend comes zipping by in her little bike. And, Chloe had this look on her face and I was like, oh my, you know what? Chloe doesn't know how to ride a bike yet, right? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, what am I doing? Like, I haven't taken her to the park enough. I haven't spent enough time on the driveway at home with her. And those are it's a small thing, but it's a big thing, right? These are the things you give up. And for those of us who've done work like dogs for our ventures, for our thing, and it doesn't have to be your own company. It could be that project at work that you're trying to make your manager really believe in. You give up stuff to do this. So is it worth it? And I want to talk about that a little bit. What we work on is we do strollers and stuff, but we work on car seat safety, right? That's our passion. 90% of car seats in this country are used incorrectly, which is this crazy statistic because that basically means they're unsafe. So we're really passionate about making them safer, easier to use. But most of the time it feels super thankless. I mean, it's just tons of regulatory issues and liability issues, and the media is always misreporting things and riling everybody up, and it just feels like a really thankless task. But I got this email, I gotta tell you about this, from a customer, and he starts off by saying he got in a horrible car accident. And you get an email like that, and you just kind of oh, do I really want to read this thing? And I kept reading it, and he said he was going along the highway, apparently, at about 50 miles per hour, and this other car coming the other way crossed the median and hit his car almost head on. And the dad who wrote me, apparently he dislocated his jaw, he broke his sternum, he had serious back injuries, and he was in physical therapy for just months and months. But the kicker of it was, his 5-month-old daughter was in the back seat in a car seat that I'd helped design, and apparently unscathed, no scratches, right? And I mean, yeah, tell me about it. And the car was totaled. I mean, so he just goes on and on about details about that. But I won't be shy about it. I got pretty choked up reading that, right? Because who wouldn't? And he wrote me to thank me for the car seat. I wrote him back immediately, and I was like, man, thank you. Are you kidding me? And this is the kind of stuff that's made it worth it to me. Because again, I'm trying to be honest with you. We've given up things to do this, but that makes it worthwhile. To line it up a little bit, though, what are other things that have made it worthwhile to me? So our stuff wasn't obviously one of the highlights of my life. I'm sorry, I have to put it up there. And I have the privilege of seeing this stuff all around the world. It's unbelievable to me. I still cannot believe when I see Eric talking about his Orbit Baby stroller. I just can't believe it that this stuff is out in the world. It's such a privilege. But mostly it's a privilege that I get to work with this team of people at my company now who are all passionately embrace this bold spirit I'm talking about, right? Chasing the dreams. And let me give you some examples. We had an employee who worked her way up from online tournaments all the way to playing in the World Series of Poker in Vegas. Very cool, right? We had another employee who welded up his own infant bike seat car seat carrier for his bike, and he took his infant and wife on a bike tour from Portugal to Norway, camping along the way for 4 months. And we had another employee who worked her way up to being Miss Rodeo California, of all things. So just kind of crazy, zany stuff, but really worth it. Yeah, worth it. You get out of bed and you're excited to go to work. I mean, I think that's the important point to bring up about, is it important, has it passed your test? So I just kind of like to wrap up a little bit and go over all these points I've just made to you with a very, very abbreviated story of my dad, because he's just one of the most inspirational figures to me still in my life. He was in the Taiwan Air Force when he was a young man, and there was this exchange program apparently with the American military, and he bluffed his way in. He sort of bluffed that he knew more English than he really did because his superiors knew no English. So he could say anything, right? So he ended up in Biloxi, Mississippi through this program in the 1960s, right? And he's this like Chinese farm boy who's like never been, a mile from home, basically. And so I think in terms of experiencing the impossible, clearly he had that experience, stepping sideways. So the next thing I talked about was pushing beyond. So my mom and my dad, they do Dale Carnegie training, how to win friends and influence people and that whole thing. But their original idea was they were going to take it to the Chinese American community in LA. But my dad, in terms of this whole push beyond spirit, he cold called the CEO of Dale Carnegie Training in New York, and he said, I'm your guy to take this whole concept that you guys do into Taiwan and China. I'm going to do the whole thing. And again, kind of one of those lo and behold moments, they gave him that opportunity. And now he's the biggest Dale Carnegie organization in the world. And so in terms of pushing it to that next step, again, I think that the things that really inspire people go beyond what was that original idea, right? So we talked about those two things. The next thing I talked about was being true. My dad loves what he does. He's over 70 years old, and you cannot get that guy to stop, right? And I think that's a very sort of like good test of like, are you doing the thing that is what you were put on this earth to do? He loves teaching. He loves giving speeches through Dale Carnegie Training. And it's like I get tired just hearing about his itinerary, right? And I called him last week, and I kid you not, he was in Inner Mongolia giving a speech. So true to who he is, and anybody who knows him will tell you this. And then the last thing I talked about was the go-home test. What did he give up? So we've had a pretty unusual family life, I'll tell you. I grew up, when I was in high school, I didn't live with my parents. When I tell people that, it's sort of like kooky and odd to people. But I lived in Irvine with my sister, and my parents were in Taiwan. And I saw them maybe a few times a year. And so it didn't matter if it was like cooking or, fixing the toilet that wouldn't flush or whatever. That was all on me because I didn't live with my parents. And they were doing their company. They were doing this Dale Carnegie training thing. So I think we gave up a lot as a family, actually. But, we have a great family life right now, but he has to answer that question for himself, right? Was it worth it? And I think if you asked him that, he would say absolutely. He's touched the lives of thousands of Chinese people because Chinese culture, to be honest, is still like a pretty, you're taught to be more sort of insular than you are to be extroverted, right? And through the communication speeches and talks that he does, he's really opened people up. I've seen this firsthand. He's touched on, just changed people's lives. So absolutely, it's worth it. Kind of rushing through the end here, but why am I telling the story of my dad? Because fundamentally, he's one of the happiest guys that I know. And why is he so happy? To me, I think it's because he's doing what he was meant to do. He's chasing his life's big ambition. And I think that I just like to leave you with this quote again, and just with the idea that today and for every day for the rest of your life, you should really ask yourself, are you doing the biggest thing for you? Thank you.